I want to talk about, and you'll forgive me for bringing it up, Fab.
Sure.
That was the darling company for at least 2 years.
For at least 2 years, yeah.
And they attracted a tremendous amount of venture capital. They spent a tremendous amount of venture capital. What lessons can you draw from that? What lessons should entrepreneurs take away from that?
The early days of Fab sales were nothing short of absolutely incredible. Mm-hmm. So they went from 1 to 10 to $100 million in GMV in just a matter of a
and
few
GMV
months.
Being gross merchandise value?
Yes. Yeah. And so to power that growth, they raised a bit more sort of money on the note. Then they raised a Series A from Menlo, and then they raised a Series B from Henderson Horowitz at increasing valuations and everything. And the more money they had, the more money they spent. But I think that up until then, there was nothing which was completely crazy. Mm-hmm. And then for me, the first time that Fab really sort of took a major risk was to go after Casacanda, which was a website, a copycat of Fab that
the Sumner
Brothers had spun out and launched. And basically, they were going after Fab, literally copying the website. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether it was the board, the management team, or both that said, let's go and preempt any effort that the Summer Brothers are doing by buying ourselves a German knockoff of Fab and launch it as Fab Europe.
I want to stop and we'll continue on the story, but this is the teachable moment of probably many. But I funded a company in New York called MakeSpace.
Yes.
And we've had great initial success. And the Sumner Brothers copied us. Mm-hmm. Not just them, but there's a copycat in London, there's a copycat in Hong Kong, literally down to stealing our images, laying out the pages the same way. So I sat down with Sam Rosen, and Sam said, what do we do? And I said, you do nothing. If we build an amazing company in the US, we earn the right to go international. We earn the right to then go try to take on the copycats. If we take on the copycats and we haven't built a great company in the US, like shame on us. Mm-hmm. And you really have to stay focused on your core market. And I know markets are global, and I know there are some exceptional people who can do multiple markets at the same time. But it really can be a distraction if you're not multilingual, can't deal with multiple laws, multiple currencies, employment laws, and travel. So,
and talk about sourcing of products, inventory in 2 different places. So I think that for me, the first mistake, and it's easy, hindsight 2020, the first mistake was to go after the copycats and just not do what you just did, which is just focus on the US, focus on building, sort of the sourcing engine, on building the user acquisition engine, and getting the economics right.
I will say this, I think they're all related. And what I wanted to peel back the onion on is when you have capital constraints force focus, they force creativity, and in a way they force innovation, and they force you to ask harder questions about viability of your concept, of your gross margins and other things. Sometimes having too much capital, it papers over the underlying problems of the company, and I really think it was the capital, because everything else to me is a symptom of having too much capital.
A lesson for entrepreneurs that you could be sort of the darling, in the press and everywhere, but if ever your economics and you just haven't built a real foundation that you can scale on. So scaling too fast, raising money too quickly can be a deadly.
And more problems with overcapitalizing are you set investor expectations, because if they're giving you a huge round, their expectation is that you're going to grow faster, which forces you to try to get the growth maybe more artificially than you otherwise are ready to grow at. When you raise the big rounds and then you do a lot of press, as Fab did, and they started doing TV-based advertising, also part of the problem is you raise the market's expectation. So a normal company that isn't overcapitalized, that isn't as public, probably goes through the same journey where, gosh, our gross margin isn't quite right, or our clients aren't biting here, let's cut back 20% of our staff, let's figure it out. But it's also public when you're that company, and so I think there's a lesson there as well.
Yeah, I think there's the public aspect, but there's also the fact that, you can't sort of buy your way into growth. And if you try and grow too fast before your foundation has been properly laid out, you will eventually sort of pay for it, and you will sort of crack from all over the place. And I think well-run companies that continue scaling had to rebuild their infrastructure over time. And there's a lot of we talk about technical debt, but there might be sort of infrastructure debt as well that you have to pay at some point.